Howdy, and welcome to Wise About Texas, the Texas History Podcast. This is your host, Ken Wise. Thank you very much for tuning in today. I'm going to talk a little bit about Texas history. We're in the 190th anniversary of the Texas Revolution, and we're going to talk a little bit about an obscure topic related to the Battle of the Alamo. But first, let me remind you, this podcast is being recorded and released in late February, and upcoming is the annual meeting of the Texas State Historical Association from March the 5th through the 7th in Irving, Texas. So be sure and come over there. I'm going to host a panel Friday morning, March 6th, and three historians are going to be presenting on three different former governors of the state, and I'm going to be the commentator. So that'll be Friday morning at 10 a.m. at the meeting. So stop by, say hello. I'll be around the meeting the whole time. Look forward to meeting everybody who wants to come to that meeting. Today, I wanted to talk about letters from the Alamo, but maybe not the letters that you think of. So let's go back to 1836. In San Antonio de Bejar, the Alamo is under siege by the Mexican army under Santa Anna, and we're going to get wise about Texas. The first thing you're going to think about when we talk about letters from the Alamo is the famous William Barret Travis victory or death letter. That letter, Travis wrote that letter, or dated it, February 24th, 1836. And this is probably one of the most famous letters actually in the world. If you think about the effect of the Texas Revolution on the formation of the United States and the effect of the formation of the United States on the rest of the world, surely Travis's victory or death letter is right on up there. It's inspired millions of people through history, was instantly recognized as an inspirational plea for assistance from the besieged Alamo defenders. That letter was one of a series that Travis wrote and sent from the Alamo. And just as an aside, if you read those letters side by side, you can feel the tension that those defenders were feeling as the letters got more desperate in tone. Travis expected help to be coming, and of course that help never arrived. But that is not the letter that I want to focus on today. What I want to do is focus on some missing letters and see if we can't figure out a little bit about what's going on with these letters. So later in the siege, about 3 days, on March the 3rd, 3 days before the fall of the Alamo, we know that William Barret Travis sent two letters from the Alamo, but those may not have been the only letters. One was published they were both published in the Telegraph and Texas Register. One around March the 12th, if I recall, the other one later than that, and they reveal some things about the besieged garrison, and those letters are well known. Travis talks about what the gentleman from Gonzales, whom we now refer to as the Immortal 32, that rode into the Alamo. But there was another letter sent with the Travis letters, and it was written by one of the Alamo defenders, Willis Moore. Willis Moore was writing to his family in Mississippi, and those letters were presented to the General Land Office in the mid-1800s, sometime in the 1850s or early 1860s. There's another famous letter from Travis to a friend of his named David Ayers, and that's the one that addresses asking Ayers to take care of Travis's son Charles, and that letter we think may have been sent on March the 3rd. There's just no way to know when for sure it was sent. There's another letter that we know of that Travis wrote to his then fiancée, Rebecca Cummings. We don't have that letter. We would like to have it, but Angelina Eberly, one of my favorite characters of Texas history, as everyone who's listened to this podcast for any length of time well knows, she discusses a letter from Travis to Miss Cummings arriving in San Felipe, she told that to Mary Austin Holly, who wrote her papers at the University of Texas and wrote about that. So we know the letter's out there. And no doubt was Travis's goodbye to his fiancée. One of the open questions, well, a couple of open questions. Were there other letters other than the ones we know of in the letters that left the Alamo March 3rd or 4th? And who carried those letters? One of these stories through the ages has been that a gentleman named John William Smith was the last person to leave the Alamo carrying correspondence. One historian found some testimony in a probate case of an Alamo defender named Ewing that said that Smith left Ewing in the Alamo on the Friday night previous to its fall, which would have been March the 4th. But whether letters dated March the 3rd doesn't necessarily mean they left March the 3rd. They could have left March the 4th, so it's not all that important. But and then, who knows if the recollection was accurate. We know that another man named William Bull carried Travis's letter, one of Travis's letters to Gonzales, arriving in that town March the 6th. Coincidentally, Eberle's account to Holly says that the letter to Miss Cummings arrived in San Felipe March the 6th as well. So the letters were going different directions. Obviously, there's more than one courier. And something else I want to comment on, if you do some reading in the primary sources of the Texas Revolution and have any experience with horses, you will be amazed at how fast word was traveling from Behar to Gonzales to San Felipe, between the army and the government, etc. Despite the significant distances and the frequent need to cross creeks and bayous and rivers and other bodies of water, these letters were flying around very, very quickly. There is some other testimony in front of the Texas legislature, specifically by a man named Grady, who worked for the Telegraph and Texas Register. And he talks about not only letters from Travis, which could have been the one to Cummings, or the one to Cummings might have been among them. He also mentioned that a letter from David Crockett arrived from the Alamo, but he doesn't mention the date. So it's possible that David Crockett wrote a letter from the Alamo, and man, wouldn't that be something to find? That would be one of the most significant discoveries in Texas history in recent times. But it also tells us that there was more than just Travis's letter. And that brings us to another story. And this story is from a retired U.S. Marshal Bob Anderson, and it's recounted in an article I'm going to tell you about at the end of this. But apparently he encountered what's described as a carnival worker in far south Texas in the Brownsville area. And this carnival worker said that his grandfather was a postmaster in Tennessee, and that he came to possess an old box of letters, several of which were written by Alamo defenders. And this carnival worker said, my family still has them. Now, there were several Alamo defenders from Tennessee, so that would be plausible. Unfortunately, Mr. Anderson didn't get to follow up with this carnival worker who subsequently disappeared. Incidentally, apparently Mr. Anderson is a descendant of an Alamo defender and had a jacket on to that effect, and that's what prompted the conversation. And Mr. Anderson indicates that he believes what this guy said because it was too weird a story for him to just walk around telling. So that's at least a little bit of evidence that there are other letters out there from the Alamo defenders. Now I want to talk about one more letter that you may or may not have heard of. And this is a letter that was written from Robert McAlpin Williamson. Now, he was a famous character in Texas history. They called him Three-Legged Willie, and he had a childhood disease that drew up one of his legs 90 degrees, so he had a peg leg, and they called him Three-Legged Willie. Robert McAlpin Williamson. He ended up being one of the first 4 district judges in the state of Texas, and he dates this letter March the 1st, 1836. This letter was found in William Barret Travis's Saddlebags at the Alamo by the Mexican Army. It was published in Mexico after being presented to Santa Anna, who subsequently sent it to the Secretary of War, General Don Jose Maria Tornel. I'm going to read the letter to you. March 1st, 1836. Sir Colonel Travis, you cannot know my anxiety, sir. Today makes 4 full days that we have not received the slightest report regarding your dangerous situation, and therefore we have indulged in 1,000 conjectures about it. 60 men have set out from this municipality. He's talking about Washington on the Brazos. And in all human probability, they are with you at this date. Colonel Fannin, with 300 men and 4 pieces of artillery, has been on the march for Behar for 3 days. Tonight, we expect some 300 reinforcements from Washington, Bastrop, Brazoria, and San Felipe, and no time will be wasted in seeking their help for you. With regards to the other letter of the same date, let it pass. Today you will know what it means. If the multitude gets hold of it, let them figure it out. I am your true friend, R.M. Williamson. P.S. For God's sake, hold out until we can help you. I am sending to you, with Major Bonham, a message from the Interior Government. 1,000 greetings to all of your people, and tell them to hold firm for Willis until I get there. Signed, Williamson. And below that it says, write us as soon as you can. Now, as you can tell, there were a couple of inaccuracies in that letter. Williamson thought that Fannin was on the march for the Alamo, but of course we know that that march failed. He returned to Goliad and then ended up trying to leave again, which resulted in the Battle of Colado Creek and the capture and subsequent massacre of all his men. But you can also tell that everyone was scrambling to try to assist Travis and defend the Alamo, but in that chaos caused delay, and that delay cost the Alamo defenders their lives. So it seems that there were possibly letters written by the defenders that have survived. One can only hope that they survived through the years, and if anyone has any ideas about where to locate these letters, that would be a heck of a research project, especially if there is a letter out there from Crockett. So get your research hats on and get to work. As far as the portion of the episode called Getting There, head to the Alamo. As I mentioned, I'm recording this and releasing it during the 190th anniversary of the siege. You will enjoy seeing all the progress made at the Alamo, and more continues to be made. So take a moment, go visit the Alamo, especially during this time, and remember the men who died there in defense of Texas. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Wise About Texas. Thanks for listening today. Go find us on Instagram and Twitter at Wise About Texas. I hope to meet you at the Texas State Historical Association annual meeting on March the 5th of 2026. If you want to support the preservation and promotion of Texas history, go to patreon.com/wiseabouttexas. Thanks again for listening. Go out and do something for Texas today. And until next time, God bless Texas, and we'll see you down the road.